Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi and welcome, I'm Yamini Naidu and welcome to the Power of Storytelling, the series. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at why it's important to master business storytelling. I remember when I was 10, my teacher, Miss Asha, came into the classroom and she asked us to think of a sentence. And she said the sentence could only have 10 words. Each of those words could only have 2 letters and the sentence had to make sense. 10 words, 2 letters, a sentence that had to make sense. We tried and we tried, and we came up with nothing. She then wrote up on the board, if it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. That day, Miss Asha influenced a classroom full of children to think differently about life. But not just in that moment or for that day, for the rest of our lives. That was my first brush with influence, and I was hooked. Influence is about getting people who turn up to turn on, and it's the key to your success in business. Now, I believe so much in influence that 10 years ago, I co-founded a company that did just one thing. It specialized in the oldest form of influence, in storytelling. So here I am. I'm an economist by training. Do you know how many economist jokes there are in the world? Most people think loads. There are lots of economist jokes. There are actually only 3 because the rest are true stories. So here I am. I'm an economist by training and I co-found a company that does storytelling. And I was so excited. I raced home to tell my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm going to be doing storytelling. And my mom replied, like any good Indian mother would, is that a job? Why can't you be in IT or be a doctor? Storytelling is as old as time, but in terms of influence, it's the contemporary tool of our time. Influence is so important that every year, Time magazine, they publish a special edition, and it's dedicated to the world's 100 most influential people. And recently, they put Beyoncé on the cover of Time magazine. So she was the world's most influential person. And the blurb on Beyoncé said, Beyoncé doesn't just sit at tables. Beyoncé builds better tables. And that's what mastering influence can do for you. It can help you build a better table, whatever that looks like for you at work, connecting with your teams, engaging your clients, inspiring your industry. So I'm going to share with you 3 ideas around influence. Traditionally, influence has been about hard power, command and control, yell and tell. So if you've ever had a boss pull rank on you, or you've shouted at your kids, clean up your room or else, you've experienced hard power. Way back in the 14th century, Machiavelli wrote The Prince. And in The Prince, he said, it's better to be feared than to be loved. But is it? What do you think the limitations of trying to influence using hard power might be? There are 3 limitations. The first is you might get outright rebellion, or you could get grudging compliance, when people do the bare minimum. Or you could get that other horrible thing that happens when people say yes, but they do no. And with influence, we're trying to get people who turn up to turn on, and hard power can turn them off. So, in the 1990s, along with high-waisted ripped jeans, for such as me, a couple of us, the Spice Girls, remember them? And the Simpsons, we discovered soft power. Soft power comes to us from the work of Harvard business professor Joseph Nye. He said soft power is about using connection, collaboration, cooperation to influence. So if hard power is push, soft power is pull. In Hollywood terms, hard power is like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's biff, bam, boom. And soft power is like Marilyn Monroe. It's beautiful, it's slow, it's seductive. So often when we're trying to influence, only soft power will do. To find out why, I want you to travel with me to Singapore. Who's been to Singapore? I love Singapore. Sparkly clean, sizzling hot, the hub of innovation, great food. Sadly, on the 30th of October 2000, Singapore Airlines had a fatal air crash. 83 people died. It was a deeply traumatic time. Tiny country, their national carrier. A press conference was called, and the relatives and friends of the deceased were invited to attend. The press conference was also beamed live around Singapore, and everybody in Singapore stopped what they were doing to watch. At the press conference, Rick Clements, who was then Vice President of Public Affairs, he stood up behind a lectern. He offered his sincerest condolences to people in the room. And he said, we at Singapore Airlines, we're going to look at every step, every process, every policy to ensure that tragedies just like this. Just then, a man in the audience had lost his brother, stood up and started hurling abuse at Rick Clements. A security guard started to move swiftly towards this man to drag him away. When Rick Clements, he stepped out from behind the lectern, he flagged the security guard away, and he started to move towards this by now silently sobbing man. The camera panned on Rick, and you could hear a pin drop in the auditorium because nobody knew what would happen next. Rick walked up to the man, he reached out, and he hugged him. That hug, that moment of soft power, moved people in the room, including hardened journalists, to tears. That moment of soft power, that hug, was when Rick Clements influenced not just people in the room, but an entire nation, that they could move forward together. Soft power, it can give you influence far beyond the edges of hard power. Some leaders or business owners, they just intuitively get soft power. Mother Teresa was a leader like that. I grew up in Bombay. Who's been to Bombay? And when I was growing up in Bombay, we'd organized a massive march. There was a massive march organized all over the country, an anti-war protest. And Mother Teresa lived in Calcutta then, and she was invited to join this anti-war protest. And she replied, please invite me when you're marching for peace. Peace, a hug, love, all soft power. At work, connecting, consulting, collaborating, all soft power. You never want to live a day without soft power. But it's always about context, isn't it? So sometimes, very sparingly, you might want to use hard power. Like when stuff's urgent, or it's an emergency, or people have to follow process. But most of the time, you want to live in a world with soft power. You almost, in a sense, have to be like a Bollywood hero. I hope you've seen a Bollywood film. If you haven't, you've got a lifetime of delight ahead of you. So a Bollywood hero is many things, but he's a master of context. So one minute you see him, and he's using hard power, and he's bashing up, or he's punching up the bad guys. And the next minute you see him, he's using soft power, and he's dancing in the city square, romancing the woman he loves. And what's amazing, when he dances in the city square, everybody there, the retail trader, the passing students, the homeless guy, they all know the steps too, and they all dance in synchronicity. So it's always about context. But could the tools of influence that we have been using, so we've got hard power, but hard power is hard to do well. Hard power hurts. It hurts you, it hurts other people, and it hurts your chances of success. We've got soft power, but soft power is slow. It takes time. It takes meetings, meetings, and more meetings. Soft power is also incredibly hard to do well. And this is what so many business owners that I speak with who are trying to make that shift from hard power to soft power. That is what they tell me. I remember when my daughter Tara was 13, for a week by mistake, I was taking her teenage multivitamin tablets instead of my own. And when I found out, I just had so much fun with it. I immediately adopted teenage attitude. I'd go like, meh, whatever. It was so much fun, but it was hard work because that's not who I am. And this is what business owners tell me about soft power. Soft power is also incredibly subtle. So if hard power is a fist, soft power is a fingertip. So sometimes it doesn't land. And this is what happened to Shanika Fernando. He's the founder of a group of restaurants in Australia called Lentil as Anything. Great name. Lentil as Anything is based on soft power. It's based on the power of trust. So the menu doesn't have any prices. And at the end of the meal, you as the customer, you pay what you think the meal is worth. So Shanika is really different. And this is what he shared when he did a TEDx talk in Melbourne. Shanika was seeking enlightenment, and he just lives out in St. Kilda in Melbourne. And based on what his Buddhist teacher said, he left home and he pitched a tent on St. Kilda foreshore, and he started to live in the tent. And of course he got hassled by the police, by the council. You can't just pitch a tent and live in a tent on a public beach. And after 3 weeks of living in the tent, he rang up his Buddhist teacher in frustration and said, you know what, this whole thing, seeking enlightenment by living in a tent, it's not working. And his Buddhist teacher replied, Janaka, you silly man, I never said live in a tent. I said live with intent. So we've got, as business owners, we've got hard power. It doesn't always work. We've got soft power, which can be slow, hard to do well, and subtle. Our context has changed so much in the 21st century. So should there be other tools that we should be looking at? I was walking down Glenferrie Road, Hawthorne in Melbourne, near where I live, just the other day, and I saw an incredible sight. I saw this really, this young, trendy businessman dressed in a suit and a tie, and he was in the public phone booth, using the public phone. And it just looked so wrong for our context. I wanted to press my nose against the glass and go, where's your cell phone? Where's your smartphone? Here, have mine. Because it just looked so wrong for our context. Should there be something different we should all be trying? Because our context is so different. Business is always about two things, isn't it? It's about engaging people, your clients, your teams, your stakeholders, your suppliers. And it's about delivering commercial results. Every day at work, we've got to engage people, and we've got to deliver commercial results. Could the tools...
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.